today, whatever Sourabh spoke about, today materials used for construction, whether it is a cement, like what Mr. Rao said, it could be a glazing, it could be anything. So we actually are looking at the same LCA, the life cycle approach, whereby construction materials which are used inside a building, if they can prove that they have used lesser energy, lesser water, contributed to lesser waste in manufacturing, they get more points in lead. So that's a dramatic shift which we did 3 years back. Obviously, we had a huge resistance, right? But as you know, as has been the response of the world to all these challenges, today, many of the organizations, I'm talking about India, many of the material manufacturers in India, including ACC, including JSW, Saint Gobain, Modi Glass, Asian Paints, all of them are today confirming to that. So today they actually, so supply chain is today really going green, and we are stepping the pressure as well.
So I can see our members joining in, and so very happy to see the fraternity here. Just in the best interest of time, I will begin. I hope you're all doing well and are in good health and are keeping safe. And thank you very much for taking the time out today to join into such a difficult time. It's such a big privilege and a pleasure to reconnect with everyone, our distinguished panelists who are handpicked because of the think input and the rich experience that they bring in. And thank you to our distinguished audience for joining us. We've received over 100 registrations, most of whom are senior leaders, CEOs, CXOs, and many of them are members as well, who are repeat visitors to our webinars. So which is very encouraging and motivates us to provide higher levels of dialogue through the online modes as well. So for those of you who are new with us today, the BlueCircle is an exclusive community and ecosystem which is curated for business leaders across 6 sectors, which are real estate, logistics, e-mobility, energy, healthcare, aerospace, and defense. We also present socioeconomic insights which ultimately determine the evolving complexion of the market. And in response to the COVID challenge, the BlueCircle has also accentuated its digital presence. One of the many modes we employ is our weekly webinar series and our digital publication. And in addition to this, then you'll be happy to know that we very recently launched the first version of the BlueCircle app, which is curated for leaders, somewhat like the sector-specific LinkedIn for leaders, a space that brings them together to have meaningful conversations, connect with like-minded folks such as yourselves, house high quality curated content, and also provide access to business opportunities across our core sectors. So those leaders who are interested to join, please do write to us. I would also share the link to the app in the chat section, and will then be sending in invitations to our new guests post the webinars. We've also begun our selective outreach and have close to 3,000 leaders who've signed up in the waitlist as well. As part of our innovation series, we're privileged to have big minds and leading thinkers of the industry join in for our real estate circles discussion. The topic is real estate, innovative technologies for positive environmental impact. And I will just briefly mention the names and designations in the best interest of time. We have with us Mr. Gopalakrishnan Padmanabhan, Managing Director, Southeast Asia and Middle East Markets, GBCI. Mr. Narayana Rao Kapilavai, former Director, Energy, Environment and Sustainability, ACC. Mr. Sourabh Bansal, co-founder and managing director, Magicrete Building Solutions. And the chair and moderator for the session is Mr. G. Raghavan, founding partner, Next Practice Growth Partners, former CEO, Bharti Urban, NIT, Ingram Micros, Carrier, independent director, Amrutanjan Healthcare, and director, BlueCircle as well. So welcome, sirs. Thank you very much for joining in. And now I request Mr. Raghavan to please chair and moderate the session, sir.
Thank you, Siddharth. That's a good introduction. It's a very, very powerful topic, and we have really great practitioners of the trade in the webinar today. So I want to thank all the panelists, as well as I want to thank the participants who have registered and joined as well in the BlueCircle webinar. First of all, today's topic is something that's extremely crucial. The paradox of the real estate industry is a very, very stark and a sharp one. On the one hand, the industry is the biggest and key enabler of people's lives. It's an engine of economic growth and a provider of employment for many, many millions of people. On the other hand, however, the industry is also notorious for being a bad boy in the whole environmental area and the sustainability arena. When it comes to environment and sustainability, there is scope to use all of the Hindu mythological options of Sama, Dana, Veda, and Danda. Basically to say there are opportunities to use diplomacy, there are opportunities to use sacrifice, there's opportunity to use community regulations as well as government regulations. When it comes to global commons, whether it is the environment or the oceans or the atmosphere in general, there are always three directions in which the world has tried to take control. One is banking on individual actions, individuals to do the right thing. We all know that the power of this particular direction of action has got its own limitations. The second real attempt has been to create community rules, whereby all the members of the community agree to follow certain rules, whether it is fishing in the oceans or ozone emissions, etc. But the most definitive route seems to be one of governmental regulations. I think history will tell which route has actually been most helpful. The point is, at this point of time, we are forced to use a mix of everything possible in order to achieve the goals on the environment. But I believe that the only way to ensure all of us to move towards sustainable practices, especially in the real estate industry, is to bring the individual incentives to coincide with what is good for the society. Now, it's easily said than done. And that is exactly where innovation comes into play. As the famous statement says, insanity is nothing but doing the same thing and expecting different results. So here, the opportunity for doing different things comes in the form of innovation. In this context, today's webinar assumes significance as the impact that the ideas you will hear today have a far-reaching influence on our planet. And many other concepts can be transported to other sectors as well. And we have absolutely the right speakers on our panel. And without much ado, let me get on with calling on the first speaker, Mr. Sourabh Bansal. Mr. Sourabh Bansal is a co-founder and managing director of Magicrete. He's an industrial engineer from IIT Kharagpur. Having founded Magicrete at the young age of 24, Sourabh led it to become a leading company and a recognized brand in the building materials and construction technology space. He has been conferred upon the award of Entrepreneur of the Year by TIE. Under his leadership, Magicrete has been recognized as most preferred brand in the building materials category by ET Now. Recently, he was awarded the Young Alumni Achiever Award from his alma mater, IIT Kharagpur. Sourabh, over to you. You've been a practitioner of everything that matters when it comes to innovation in the real estate industry. Would you please proceed to tell us a little bit about overall what you're doing and how your concerns for the environment has driven you to do what you're doing? And you seem to have just started. Over to you, Sourabh.
Thank you, Mr. Raghavan. First of all, thanks to Siddharth and BlueCircle team for having invited me to this platform. I must congratulate you on this amazing platform that has been made available in today's times. I'm sure our industry and the other 5 categories you have launched in need this kind of a solution. It's a pleasure to be part of this panel discussion and being on the same platform as Mr. Gopalakrishnan and Mr. K.N. Rao. So, well, I'll introduce myself again. So I'm Sourabh Bansal, co-founder and managing director of Magicrete Building Solutions. Well, about our, I'll take you through a brief of our journey. We started way back in 2008. So that's when I graduated, and I was looking on a lookout for opportunities to start up. So when we started way back then, it was with Magicrete was found with the idea of helping people build their homes better, faster, and cheaper by use of innovative construction technologies. So we knew while we were starting that our approach had to have sustainability around it. So whatever we did had to be with sustainability in mind. So and we strongly believed in a philosophy that whatever can help save on resources or help conserve energy has to make economic sense. So that's how we launched with our flagship product back then, which is AAC blocks. So I'll just brief you a bit about the product. AAC blocks is a very disruptive technology. So it's a walling material and a replacement of clay bricks. It's almost 10 times the size of a clay brick. It helps speed up construction. It's a green building material. It has exceptional insulation properties. So over our journey, across our journey, we have tried to launch many other products which have helped boost the speed of construction, help reduce the cost of construction. And in fact, AAC has become so ubiquitous and so prevalent in today's time. You see almost most of the construction happening in tier 1 cities using this AAC block. So as against, when earlier buildings used to appear red in color, which was because of clay bricks. So today they appear gray in color, and we like to boast of having brought about that change across the real estate. So one of the reasons that the product really caught about was it's being far superior in every aspect compared to clay bricks. So if you talk about clay bricks, they are made using agricultural top level soil, which renders so much of land being unusable for agriculture, whereas these blocks are made using fly ash. Another aspect is in its manufacturing process, the energy that is consumed in making these blocks is far lesser. Almost 20% of energy is consumed as against clay bricks, which are very energy hungry. So while we were selecting the product that we wanted, we knew that we had to select a product that had the lowest environmental impact across the life cycle of it. So when we mean the life cycle, it meant that starting from the sourcing of the raw materials to the manufacturing process of the product to the supply chain of it, and finally the use when the product is put to use for its entire life. So all these aspects, the product had to be, consuming a lot lesser energy. So that with that approach in mind, we identified that AAC proved to be meeting all the parameters. So
in Sourabh, in terms of more than the product that you created, I'm very energized by the deep belief that you have in this whole area, and I'm going to be quizzing you a lot more as we go along. To kind of have you speak about your beliefs as well as everything else that you have in your cupboard to bring out as we go along. So thank you for that. Opening remarks are really very, very powerful with a real example of what you've done. So I'm going to be coming back to you. Hold your horses. I'm going to move to Gopalakrishnan. If you saw Sourabh actually executing one of the important components of the building material, here is a gentleman who's actually taking the cause on a much, 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 much larger scale, not only in India, but many, many parts of the world. And he is running these Green Building Certification Inc. So I'm going to lead to Gopalakrishnan. Let me do a quick introduction of him. As Managing Director, Southeast Asia and Middle East Markets, Gopalakrishnan manages business and market development of LEED and other GBCI rating systems for the Asia Pacific and Middle East regions. His expertise includes corporate strategy, international market expansion, branding, and business unit creation. As an alumnus of College of Engineering, Guindy, and Indian Institute of Management, Kolkata, he has more than 20 years of corporate experience in Asia Pacific and Middle East regions. Gopal, you've been spearheading this very, very exciting area for a large part of Asia. So we'll be very, very eager to hear from you what drives you and what exactly is your organization up to. How are you fighting the cause for improving sustainability in this world? You're on mute, Gopal. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Raghavan, for setting the stage, and Sourabh for your opening remarks as well. First of all, I hope all of you on this call, you're all safe and well, and all of you have got vaccinated, or at least in the process of getting vaccinated. I think this topic, if I just break it, just 3 words, right? So we're talking about sustainability, real estate, innovation. It may not have come at the right time, because today, last week I think all of you would have heard about Canada possibly clocking one of the highest temperatures ever in history, right? So there's a lot of talk about climate change, but forget all that for the time being. The last 18 months, I think whatever pandemic has actually done to the world has actually brought sustainability to the center stage. Because it's now very clear that we all live in spaces now. We could be in offices, we could be at homes, we could be visiting an outlet, and in the last 3 days people are all flocking to all the resorts. So whether it's hotels, wherever it is, or even hospitals where people recuperate, right? So today I think sustainability, while it continues to talk about energy, water, waste, carbon footprint, but I think in the last 18 months, it has brought health and well-being to center stage. And obviously, to achieve all of that, I think a lot of innovations have taken place, and it'll be my pleasure to actually share a lot of this. I think while we navigate through this session, Mr. Raghavan. So thanks for the opportunity. And I think BlueCircle is a very innovative concept, and I think as Siddharth said, sort of a LinkedIn platform for the like-minded people to get together. It's my, I think, privilege to add knowledge to such a knowledgeable, people who actually come today on this particular platform. Thank you, Mr. Raghavan.
Thank you, Gopal. There is a lot more that I'm going to be pumping you for, and I think the audience is waiting to hear a lot more stuff about what your organization is doing and how it's really going to help this very huge real estate sector. I know that you've gone over and beyond just pure real estate, but I think we'll have a lot to hear from you in the next 75-80 minutes. So I'm going to introduce the third panelist, Mr. K.N. Rao. He comes with a wealth of experience. Again, another strong practitioner. He's an IIT Madras alumnus. Mr. K.N. Rao is the former Director, Energy, Environment and Sustainability for ACC. He brings 39 years of rich experience in the area of environment management, design of air pollution control systems, climate change strategy, energy conservation and renewable energy, net zero carbon strategy for greenhouse emissions, waste management, circular economy and sustainability, and has received national recognition in several of these areas. He was involved in developing India's low carbon technology roadmap 2050 for Indian cement industry, and currently keeps busy in policy advocacy and as a consultant in assignments of national importance for many companies in India and abroad. Mr. Rao, the stage is set for you to give us the opening remarks that will get us going in the deep discussion on the many areas in which you have experience.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Raghavan, and the leadership of BlueCircle. I'd like to touch upon the basic 3 words: the real estate, innovation, and sustainability. When we talk about real estate, so I think all of you agree that we are a resource-constrained world, because the real estate consumes large amount of natural resources, let it be water, or let it be fuel, or electricity, or the sand, aggregate, cement, steel, everything. If you say that everything is being drawn from the Mother Earth. So we are in an energy resource constrained world. And if you see the materials which are used in the construction is energy intensive. Let it be aluminum, let it be steel or cement, if you talk about many raw materials which are going into the construction are all energy intensive industries, including glass. So I talk about what is the type of, everybody agrees that the climate change is the major issue in the world and at this moment. If we talk about this GHG footprint of the world, if I see that what are the annual emissions which come, which sectors, the real estate, the built environment actually contributes to 40% of GHG emissions of the world. The annual emissions, we see that. The second one is the transport systems, and third one is the industries, and fourth one is agriculture. We try to say that the large chunk of these GHG emissions come from the environment. And in the built environment, once again, one is the construction phase of footprint and one is the use phase of the footprint. The construction phase of the footprint is approximately works out to be 20% of the footprint, and the 20% of the GHG emissions what we are actually coming into the atmosphere is actually from the use phase of the buildings. So when you think about carbon neutrality, because many countries have announced by 2050 they would like to become carbon neutral. China or many countries actually are also thinking of announcing the date. I think even India was thinking that why can't we do it by 2047, which is the 100th year of our independence. But what are the challenges? If we have a goal post of carbon neutrality and you have a very short time, and it is very important that we should ultimately drive the innovation. Only the innovation is a solution in a resource-constrained world. We are having a 1/7 of the world population, and we have very little land and little amount of resources. So it's much more is relevant for India to create livelihoods and also for a sustainable living. So I will get into the subsequently. I think everybody agrees that innovation is the need of the hour for a country like India for their own journey towards carbon neutrality.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. Thank you so much. So I'm going to get started with some of the key concepts that are going to be brought out today. I want to first direct the question to Sourabh. Sourabh, I think you heard Mr. Rao say that even when aluminum is produced, or steel is produced, or glass is produced, the whole cycle of energy consumption happens right from there. So in a built environment, there is so much of pre-spent components that are already reaching at the site. Whereas you are right, you are straight away working at the very root of it from a construction material. And I've heard you talk about the life cycle concept of conservation. So would you like to talk a little bit about the whole life cycle, on a life cycle basis, how your product is contributing to sustainability?
Right, Mr. Raghavan. So in my introductory remarks, I was touching around this topic, exact topic of life cycle impact. So, whatever product or a building material is used in a home, so it is mined at some point in form of various raw materials. Then it goes to the factory, it's produced there. Lots of energy is input in the production process. Then there is a supply chain part of it. Then it is installed at site and finally put to use. So there are energies being consumed at each and every point of it. So if a product innovator or a product designer is going about developing a sustainable or a green product, one has to consider energy aspects in each of these stages, and not just, let's say, when the product is put to use or just in the production process. So
could you explain how it plays out in the blocks that you are making? Specifically, how does it play out, this life cycle concept?
Right. So in case of AAC blocks, as I said, that these are made using fly ash, which is a national waste, lies around, in ponds around all the power stations across the country. In fact, it was such a big nuisance that millions of tons was lying around in ponds and found no use except for mixing with some cement. So then we identified that this can be made into bricks and be used in walls. Walls are almost 50%, contribute to almost 50% of the weight of a building. So, and such a large volume. So it would be a large consumer of that fly ash. So, at the same time, replacing clay in the bricks, which is agricultural soil. So lots of land being saved there. So coming to the next aspect, the production part of AAC blocks, as I was saying, we employ steam curing process, wherein the product is made in 24 hours straight. So it's out and ready out of the autoclave, steam cured and ready to be dispatched. Whereas in manufacturing process of clay bricks, you need to cure it for 21 days. So lots of inventory to be stored, lots of energy to be input. So there the product also features to be green. In fact, the weight, if you compare of AAC blocks, autoclaved aerated concrete blocks versus that of clay bricks, these are one third the weight. So they have a density of close to 600 kg per meter cube. It's even lighter than water. So in fact, it floats on water. It's so light. The reason it is light, so lot less resources have gone in making of these blocks. So there the intrinsic energy value gets reduced for the product. So the lesser the weight, the less the logistics cost of the product. When it is being installed, it takes in lot less labor because the construction becomes faster. And finally, the most important property of the blocks comes in form of its thermal insulation values. It is just 0.16. The R value is just 0.16 as against 0.8 of clay bricks. So it's almost 1/4. So that provides great insulation. So if let's say the external temperature is close to 45 degree centigrade, the internal temperature would hardly be crossing 30 degrees. So lot less air conditioning consumption. So instead of a 2-tonner air conditioner, one can go for a 1.5-tonner air conditioner. And imagine the possibilities of savings across the life of a home. Let's say a 25-year or 50-year life of a home, the entire energy consumption gets reduced. So that's
this is absolutely exciting. This is absolutely exciting, Sourabh. So what you're saying is, first of all, you are not depleting the most precious soil meant for other purposes. Second thing you're saying is you're using a material that was anyway going waste. Perhaps it could have been causing environmental problems if it had been just let loose there. Third, you're saying in the making of this component, you use a lot less energy than the conventional blocks. Then you're saying it's easier, it's lighter, therefore I'm sure logistics cost, the transportation cost, everything will be less, which means we burn less fuel to move things around. And you're saying the energy involved in the actual construction of it is a lot more reduced. And finally, you are giving the piece of an icing on the cake, is saying that thermal efficiency is so fantastic that one could be saving energy in air conditioning for perpetuity. So I think this is a beautiful example of a life cycle of one innovation that can actually knock off several important elements in the entire value chain. So thank you for sharing this experience. I really appreciate the brilliance with which you enter into this business, and you're not going anywhere. I'm coming back to you with more questions, but this is very interesting. I love the concept of life cycle and how you actually demonstrated in the one important component in the real estate market. Thank you. I'm going to be moving to Gopal. Gopal, so many people have heard of your organization in the US GBC, and LEED certification. So, but people will have different ideas about what you're doing. So can you take a couple of minutes to explain what your organization is doing and what are I love the way you explained how the pandemic has increased health and well-being as an important element of the components. I hear you talk about pillars of sustainability. So would you like to give us a couple of minutes of introduction to what your organization is doing and how that is contributing to the sustainability element?
Sure. So thank you, Mr. Raghavan. And Sourabh, very, very interesting to understand your thing. And I'll also possibly talk later about how this also dovetails into what we're doing. So Mr. Raghavan, just to answer your question. So, US Green Building Council, or GBCI, we are a 28-year-old organization. Our flagship brand is LEED. So LEED is founded on, 5 principles: energy, water, waste, carbon footprint, and human experience. So it's all about, how actually, in one word, responsible development. We actually work in 180 countries and territories across the world. Close to 100,000 projects work with us, totaling 22 billion square feet, and close to 200,000 professionals actually work with us. And these professionals could be architects, they could be engineers, they could be other streams as well. But one of the shifts, what has happened, now you asked about the pillars, right? So I think during the pandemic, we actually did a lot of introspection, and we said LEED should also be topical. In the last 28 years, LEED has become an economic value proposition. Today, real estate developers or corporates or manufacturing, data centers, whereas all the segments who are into built environment have understood that it makes economic sense to go for LEED because it saves on energy, saves on water, and that's a bottom line. So there are payback periods both for newly constructed assets or even retrofitting a current asset to go for LEED as well. So that point is well established. But I think what we also did, because I think at the end of the day, LEED being the world's largest sustainability brand, we have to be ahead of the curve. So we actually added 3 very important principles back to LEED. The first one is about health and well-being. So we said that whatever buildings or campuses or cities which are going to be LEED certified should also impact the health and well-being of all the occupants. And these occupants could be in an office, employees, and in a school it could be the students, the kids, in a hospital it's a patient. So are all these occupants, their health and well-being inside a space taken care? Because let's be very clear. I think in a normal situation, all of us would be spending so much of time at our offices or taking a metro to work or being at home or visiting a theater. So all this should be able to secure the health and well-being. So we have brought that as an important pillar. The second important thing is resiliency. Because when I'm saying resiliency of a structure, because today, pandemic could be, one thing what is affecting us, tomorrow it could be a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. So whatever it is, how does LEED also contribute to resilience? That's the second topic which, we are going to add more and more layers to LEED. And the last one is social equity, because we also felt that sustainability or LEED should also be inclusive. So while, for example, we are, let's say, making a green building under LEED, but how does that impact the community at large? So let's take a few examples. Now, when I'm doing a construction, am I taking care of the construction workers? Does the debris from the construction affect my immediate community? Or once the building is complete, does it add value to the community? I'll just give you an example. Now in LEED, we talk about open spaces. So you are supposed to provide open spaces, not only for your own occupants and employees, but if you're going to open it for outsiders, you get more points. So recently we had a great example of a school in Chennai, which got LEED certified, which provided playgrounds not only for their own students, but also they left it open for the less privileged kids who are actually at the boundary of the school. So those are the points I think which we are going to focus on to make sure that sustainability and green is also inclusive. So that's my very quick points to what you asked me, Raghavan.
Great, Gopal. I think this is a very vast scope in terms of what you are up to. And I'm sure the participants are very interested to know how you measure, how do you concretize these things, how do you measure these things, how do you drive innovation in all these things. So I'm going to be coming back to you because this whole webinar is about innovation, and innovation should lead to results, and results can only be measured if we're actually measuring and baselining stuff. So I'm going to be coming back to you with what exactly your organization is doing. But before that, I want to go to Mr. Rao, who brings with him 39 years of experience. Mr. Rao, when in your opening remarks, you said 40% of greenhouse gases are coming from the built environment. So when you, for a common man, when you look at a building, to suddenly think that 40% of the greenhouse gases are coming from the building, it's kind of counterintuitive. Can you just reconcile this and tell us how 40% of the greenhouse gases are in fact contributed by the built environment?
Yeah. If we see the materials which are consumed in the building, if we say the cement, currently the India's footprint are close to 9% of the India GHG emissions are from cement. We talk about a similar level of GHG emissions are coming from steel, and these materials are going into that. And similarly, the aluminum and glass. Aluminum had the still higher carbon footprint, and the glass also has substantially higher carbon footprint. All these materials together, along with the bricks and also the other materials and the logistics to bring these materials, because they're very voluminous, all that consumption which ultimately come to the manufacturing level. So the materials, the CO2 footprint in the embodied footprint of the materials which are consumed in the building itself contribute 20% of the GHG emissions of India every year. So this is one of the aspects is that where these materials are coming, because they are coming from steel, cement, concrete, and also we are using glass and aluminum. So these are the material contributing in addition to the paints and tiles and bricks, many other materials which are also contributing to it. Now, if this is the footprint, now the biggest challenge is that if the currently already the CO2 footprint is so high, if you wanted to achieve, what are the emissions which are coming from this? I think common man feels that in any construction space, the what is being seen is about the problems which people see in construction. Another one is the dust emissions. What is that what normally see, and the lot of noise coming from the vehicles which are moving around, and also the issues related to safety, people living around them, and also people who are working in the construction space. I think these are all being touched by my colleague very effectively in the previous uh, point where he has mentioned. But what I see is that no, the dust emissions, people perception is the dust emissions is the main pollutant, but the GHG emissions is the one which is having much more bigger impact than at the in a local localized way. Whatever it happens, the SOx or NOx or dust which happens to the within boundary of maybe a kilometer circle around the city, but whereas the CO2 is having on the planet impact. So that's one of the reason there the innovation comes. Now, what is that which we require to do? If these are the raw materials which we are using, can we produce these materials which are having a carbon footprint of 20? Can we that make it to 0? Can we produce sand and use the natural resources? Can we make the material from a construction demolition waste? We can produce the sand and aggregate from the recycled materials, and not cutting the hills and then produce the aggregate, not to dredge the rivers and take out the natural sand, and then ultimately creating a huge amount of environmental impact in terms of biodiversity and species disappearance. That's something which is ultimately is very, very important. That can we manufacture from the circularity, how we can use the waste streams to produce sand and aggregate. Can we produce cement with a low, now currently footprint is around 0.6 tons of CO2 per ton of cement. Can that be brought down to 0? Can we bring down the carbon footprint of steel, which is currently at 2.5 tons? So which requires the innovation, not only innovation in terms of the products we manufacture, the manufacturing technology innovation, what we require to do, and also the product we produce, and how the raw material will be produced is from at the end of the life. The building is having a life of 50 to 100 years. Can we take the end of the building materials to produce the same material once again? And we can upcycle this material in the process, that we can reduce the resource intensity of the material required for the building and also reduce the carbon footprint. And that's what we call, the life cycle approach. Is very, very, very important that product footprint of any product need to be measured based on its environmental performance, the production stage and the use phase and the disposal phase. And what is the recyclability? Are we upcycling, or we are doing downcycling? All that is very, very important. And in this particular case, that there are lots of work is happening in the steel sector, aluminum, cement, and concrete. And the cement sector has developed a low carbon roadmap for 2050 to become net zero cement. And similarly, the concrete roadmap is under preparation by Global Cement and Concrete Association, is also targeting how to become a net zero. So this is something which brings a huge amount of technology innovations, both at the manufacturing practices of producing these materials, and also application of these materials in the construction, and also the recycling the materials at the end of the life. And most important thing is any sustainable product can be called, we cannot have a short life. It should be durable for longer cycles of time. In the process, the amount of natural resources required will be substantially smaller than currently what rate in which we are consuming. I think from 1800 onwards till now, most of the large amount of natural resources, let it be the fuels and also the limestone, let it be iron ore. I think huge consumption happened. If the planet has come billions of years ago, and we have consumed half of the natural resources maybe in the last 200 years. And so we have a responsibility to deliver the resources to our future generation.
So Rao, I think it's a beautiful explanation of how the contribution to the environmental damage is happening across multiple parts of the life cycle. The task of really improving our scores on each one of this is looking very, very enormous, and it requires really active people like you to be working in various industries to really cause these changes and cause innovations. Like I said in the opening remarks, innovation should lead to intersection of individual interest and the environmental interest. So that is where the innovation really comes in. I really look forward to hearing more from you through the rest of the sessions. And I also like the way that Gopal had earlier mentioned that their work is expanding to supply chain as well, because if we don't control it at the origins, we are not going to be able to do a whole lot once it has arrived in the built environment. So that's another thing I would like to hear in a little bit. But let me move to Sourabh. Sourabh, in terms of innovations, so from this section onwards, we'll talk a little bit about the innovations that are actually happening, because I think the audience is quite interested to know what is happening. I think so far we've done a good job of narrating the problems and the innovation. Of course, Sourabh did mention about his innovation, but Sourabh has got a lot more things on his pipeline. Sourabh, I would like you to really talk about this whole pre-built buildings concept. I think you are calling it as Magic Pod technology. So would you like to talk a little bit about it and explain to us how that is really going to contribute to sustainability?
Right, Raghavan. So, we all know how construction has lagged in productivity growth. As compared to industrial productivity, construction has lagged a lot. So if industrial productivity growth has been X, construction productivity growth has been just half of that. So, and the most important reason for that is that construction happens on site, very labor intensive processes. So our approach at Magicrete has always been to how we are able to shift this construction from on-site to off-site. We believe that homes should also be built in similar fashion as how cars are built in factories. So there you can gain a better quality control, better, faster processes, 24/7 operations. So we believe houses have to be built like that. So when we started with AAC blocks way back in 2008, we were still of the opinion that the element should not just be 10 times the size of a brick. Why can't an element be as big as the entire wall, or why not an entire room for that matter? So, but then we believed that it would be very difficult to equip or train the labor at site to adopt so large elements. Over these many years, over the last decade, lots of improvements have happened at site also. Tower cranes have come into picture, metal hoists have evolved. So, so now the industry is ready to move a step forward. So that's where our product Magic Pod comes in. So, we tried 5 years ago, we started innovating further on how we can move towards larger elements. We went ahead with precast, that was 2D precast. But then what we ended up joining 2D elements, like floor was made separately, wall was made separately. We assembled them on site and hoping to achieve more industrialization. But we realized that a lot of work still remained on site, like painting, tiling, and finishing. So we thought how we can take all those jobs also inside the factory, but then you need the entire room to be built in the factory itself. That's where Magic Pod comes in. So it is a 3-dimensional module. So like a bathroom pod or a kitchen pod. So these rooms are built on the ground inside a factory. They are finished in the factory and laid on this, taken to the side and assembled.
It's very difficult. It's very interesting, but it's very difficult to imagine. You got anything that
it would be, I'd like to take you through a video of one such project that we are executing. In fact, this is for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. The government had awarded us a 1,000-home project to be built in Ranchi in the state of Jharkhand. This video will showcase how we'll be going about it.
Thank you, Sourabh.
Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, organized Global Housing Technology Challenge India to identify and mainstream best available global technologies so as to bring a paradigm shift in the construction sector. 54 innovative technologies put in 6 broad categories were shortlisted during the challenge process. 6 lighthouse projects at 6 locations with 6 distinct technologies amongst shortlisted technologies. One of the lighthouse projects with 1,008 dwelling units in G+8 configuration, along with all basic and social infrastructure facilities, is being constructed at Ranchi in partnership with State Government of Jharkhand, using precast concrete construction system 3D volumetric. Messrs. Magicrete Building Solutions Private Limited is both technology provider and contracting agency for the project. An already established system for building construction in Singapore, Japan, and Australia. This 3D volumetric concrete construction is the modern method of building by which solid precast concrete structural modules like room, toilet, kitchen, bathroom, stairs, etc., and any combination of these are cast monolithically in plant or casting yard in a controlled condition. Subject to the hoisting capacity, building of any height can be constructed using the technology. Sequential construction in the project here begins with keeping the designed foundation of the building ready, while manufacturing of precast concrete structural modules is taking place at the factory. Factory finished room, toilet, kitchen, bathroom, stairs, etc. are then installed at the site with the help of tower cranes. Gable end walls are positioned to terminate the sides of building. Pre-stressed slabs are then installed as flooring elements. Rebar mesh is finally placed for structural screed, thereby connecting all the elements together. Consecutive floors are built in similar manner to complete this organization.
Siddharth, I think this captures
this is beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, very. I think this is being really done as we speak. It's not a concept, right?
Yeah, exactly. So in fact, Prime Minister Modi ji himself was reviewing the progress of our project the day before on this. So we hope to complete this project in 12 months straight.
Fabulous. Very good. This is a much more advanced phase of just prefab construction methodology.
So Raghavan, I'd like to add one thing here. One might really wonder how this kind of precast construction or offsite construction might add to sustainability. So apart from the obvious savings in time or in labor or reducing wastages, one important aspect to note here is that precast or rather factory built construction allows for use of innovative building materials or complex mixed designs, which otherwise wouldn't have been possible while constructing on site. So that really brings in the sustainability angle.
Lovely, lovely. It'll be very nice later on to hear from you how you measure traditional construction versus this method of construction. How do we measure the contribution to environment? Not necessarily now, but it'll be something that our audience will be very interested to know. Now, I want to move on to Gopal. Gopal, this section is about innovation, and you as running the organization must be creating a huge positive pressure for your organizations to create innovations so that they qualify for the various levels of certifications that they aspire for, right? Therefore, I'm asking question in two parts. One is, what are the innovations that your own organization has been carrying out to facilitate this? And what are your experiences with respect to your clients actually innovating and moving forward on this index? Could you talk to us a little bit about it?
Sure. Thanks. But Raghavan, if you allow me 30 seconds to talk on the supply chain, because that's also an innovation what we did. So I think it is very interesting listening to both Sourabh and Mr. Rao, and they spoke about materials as well. So one of the very important shifts in lead what we did 3 years back, which I think is more, I will also say it's an innovation, is that we said, okay, it is not just enough to only look at buildings. So what about the entire supply chain, right? So today, whatever Sourabh spoke about, today materials used for construction, whether it is a cement, like what Mr. Rao said, it could be a glazing, it could be anything. So we actually are looking at the same LCA, the life cycle approach, whereby construction materials which are used inside a building, if they can prove that they have used lesser energy, lesser water, contributed to lesser waste in manufacturing, they get more points in lead. So that's a dramatic shift which we did 3 years back. Obviously, we had a huge resistance, right? But as has been the response of the world to all these challenges, today, many of the organizations, I'm talking about India, many of the material manufacturers in India, including ACC, including JSW, Saint-Gobain, Modi Glass, Asian Paints, all of them are today confirming to that. So today they actually, so supply chain is today really going green, and we are stepping the pressure as well. So coming back to the innovation, one innovation I would like to talk to Mr. Raghavan is about digital. So today I think digitalization has possibly impacted all of us in every aspect of life, right? So we can call it as an IoT or an IIoT, or simple today, because of one of the ways I think India as an economy really was able to take to the pandemic challenge was about our digital payments. Today I think you can actually pay online everything, which a lot of countries cannot boast of, and still we are able to go through. So one of the questions which we posed to ourselves again 3 years back is how to adapt to this digital world. So that's where we came across a very interesting solution, where we said, okay, we need to move towards measurement of data, because if you're not able to measure something, what cannot be measured cannot be tracked, and what cannot be tracked cannot be improved. That's one perspective. The second important pressure which came was greenwashing, because a lot of talks about, okay, buildings are designed, they actually go for a certification, but what happens after that? Do they get irresponsible where they start actually crossing the boundaries? So in answer to both, we launched a lead digital platform. Now, what does it do? It actually takes data from a building, right? So it could be an energy data, water data, carbon dioxide data, volatile organic compounds in the air data, the carbon footprint of the people inside the building data. It could be a waste data, right? And again, in India, we have a mix of both. We have very new buildings which are actually use building management solutions. There are heritage buildings which don't have such technology. So we allowed both digital data as well as asynchronous data. When I'm saying asynchronous data, you can just even input into our platform a power bill as well, a water bill as well. So this particular platform is nothing but an IoT platform on the cloud. So any building, any city, any campus in India, they can just enter the data and get a live green score. Possibly
that's fantastic. That's fantastic. What does the dashboard look like?
Yeah, so if I can ask Siddharth to just show that image on the screen. Yeah, so Siddharth, if you don't mind, on the side. Yeah, thank you. So this is how it looks like, right? It's a very simple, a racetrack type of a thing. So you can actually.
What does the 76 mean?
Yeah, so I'll just come to that. So let's look at the racetracks now. You have energy, water, waste, transportation, nothing but carbon footprint, and then you have human experience. Now these, and you see the tracks. Now let's look at energy. You can see that this building is scoring 29 out of a maximum of 33, right? So similarly, you have points for every other parameter. And what you see in the center of the screen, 76, is the live green score of the building. Now, what is the, how does it impact all of us? Very simple. First of all, this tells you where you are, right? So it tells you, okay, how green is my building? Second, whatever changes you're going to do in the building, you can immediately get to know, is it impacting my green score positively or negatively? The third important thing we also added is this particular platform can also track your carbon scores. I think somewhere Mr. Rao spoke about carbon neutrality, right? The world is all moving. Today, if you take the top 10 leadership organizations in India, every chairman and CEO is talking about carbon. I want to cut carbon by 20%, 20%. But how do they do that? They cannot qualitatively do it. They need to have data. And that is where this platform, we believe, is going to change sustainability forever.
Where would air quality come in this, Gopal?
It's called the human experience. If you see the last track for human experience, so there, the carbon dioxide scores, the volatile organic compound, all that goes inside, right? So it's a data-driven, platform. So sustainability is no longer just about taking a certification, putting it on the wall and forget it. No, you cannot do that. So it is again a life cycle approach for an asset. You need to monitor your asset for the entire life cycle, monitor it, make improvements, make continuous improvements, track your carbon, move towards carbon neutrality. All that can be done today through a simple platform. And we didn't stop there. So I'll give you some of the other advantages. Today, we are all talking about going back to offices, right? or going back to wherever the assets, etc. The same platform, we also added a small widget, as you call it, by which you can also get something called a COVID re-entry score, which means, is the building safe for you to enter? So all the protocols you have put in place, after you have done the protocols, take this platform, enter some 5-6 data, get your re-entry score as well. This we believe is the future. And let me just tell you how successful it has been. Now, in the beginning of the conversation, I spoke about that we work with 22 billion square feet, which has been accumulated over the last 28 years. This platform, we have now taken close to 4 billion square feet across the world. And most importantly, India is the second largest market after US for this platform, for a very simple reason. I think we as Indians, we embrace technology very fast. So I'm just going to leave it that and over to you.
Great. But is it so? You said that it's possible for an existing old building people to go and adopt this. So does it require a lot of IoT sensors, etc., to be put in, or everything can be manually entered?
Yeah. So we have, it's a hybrid model. Either if you have a digital meters, it can talk to it automatically. If you have a building management system, a Honeywell or Schneider, whatever it is, it can talk to it automatically. And by the way, today, after we have launched, there are so many SMEs in India who have actually developed very cost-effective sensors, which can actually pick up data and give it to this platform. That's one side of it. The second side of it is you can also do manual entry. So for heritage buildings, we had a building in Calcutta which recently got LEED Platinum certified to this platform. What did they do? They just entered the data manually. So they have the monthly power bill, monthly water bill. Yes, for air quality, they had an external vendor to come and take one score of a carbon dioxide VOC, on regular intervals. For carbon footprint, they took the data from their employees and fed into the system. So that is what is done, Mr. Raghavan.
Thank you. That's very, very interesting. Is this free? Anybody can use this?
Yeah. So today, I think accessibility to this platform is absolutely free of cost. You can enter the data, you can get the score. When you elect to go for LEED certifications to this platform, and that's where you pay us for the certifications. Otherwise, it's absolutely free of cost for any building, any asset in India.
Great. This is absolutely a great innovation, and this is a great contribution to, like you said, if people can start measuring, there is hope for that to be managed better. Thank you for sharing this with us. I'm going to be coming back to you. The challenges that your customers are facing in order to actually move up this journey, but I'm going to come to you in a minute. But I want to move to Mr. Rao. Mr. Rao, you've been working on carbon neutral by 2050 on a policy level, on a whole industry level. So the question to you is, in your opinion, what are the innovations required in the real estate sector? And what are the innovations you're already seeing happening that gives you hope that your work to make carbon neutrality by 2050 is likely to become true? An associated question is, very, very interesting expression you always have is, can the building do the job of a tree? Could you talk to us a little bit about this concept?
Yeah. So the first point is, what is the innovation going on in the manufacturing side of the building materials? That is the use phase of the building materials. So when we talk about a cement, what are the innovations? So when we thought about writing a roadmap, we identified the levers for us to be carbon neutral. And we have identified close to more than 35 technologies which we require to implement over a period of time, which will take us to this particular journey of neutrality. And one is if you see the carbon footprint of cement, which is coming from the amount of fuel we kill, and also the amount of limestone we use. And limestone is having a calcium carbonate. The CO2 is liberated when you heat it. So the raw material is having a CO2, the fuel is having a CO2 element, and also the electricity we consume having a CO2 element. We were trying to address all the three aspects of the manufacturing. And can we do the electricity fully green? Can we have the electricity which is produced from the waste heat from the process? 35% of the electricity can be produced from the waste heat from the cement plant, and we don't need to use any additional plants. Second thing is use of renewable energy, both within the plant boundary, or also source the green power for the plant, so that at least the power side of the story can be fully green. both the waste heat recovery and the green energy. Coming to the fuel side, and we are using large amount of coal and pet coke, and which is something is imported, something domestic. And we were looking for the substitutes of fossil fuel and looking into the waste streams which are available in the country. I think we are 1.3 billion people in the country, and we almost produce close to 1.2 to 1.3 billion tons of waste per year. And out of these waste streams, which are the waste streams which we can substitute our fossil fuel requirement? I give the example that Indian cities produce close to 100 million tons of urban waste, which is produced from the municipal solid waste is close to 100 million tons. We produce close to 220 million tons of fly ash. We make close to 30 to 40 million tons of slag. And we also make huge amount of agri residue, which is having a huge potential to substitute the fuel requirement. And also we have a potential to produce the energy plantation through which that we can generate energy, how we can substitute the fossil fuel requirement of the cement kiln with the waste streams, which we should be able to use. And there we are talking about hazardous waste, non-hazardous waste, agri residue, and also the waste streams coming from the steel and power industry, that how we can substitute this material. Some materials are used for the alternative fuel, some materials are used for the alternative raw material to replace the clinker, so that our limestone consumption comes down and the CO2 can be brought down. And the next aspect is that, can we do the solar calcination? We are not using the electricity, and can we use a solar power to calcine the limestone? That's the one technology which is still on the pilot, that is on the lab scale. And also we are seeing that how to do the electrification of the kiln, where we use renewable energy, and in the process that we don't require a fossil fuel. We are also looking towards the green hydrogen can be used to substitute the fossil fuel. So we are looking into various options of the supplying thermal energy to the kiln, either by the green hydrogen or using alternative fuels, or whatever the options which we have, electrification of the kiln. These are the options which are there, where we will be able to bring down the energy footprint of the plant substantially. Another aspect is that whatever the CO2 is coming from the process, from the limestone, how to capture this CO2 in a pure form. From the chimney, the gases are coming, and they are mixed with the nitrogen and oxygen and CO2 and CO2. But ultimately, only 8% of the flue gas is only CO2. We are right now talking about a carbon capture technology, and how to, once we capture the carbon, and can we convert that into products? Carbon, let it be urea, let it could be petrochemical. You can make a hydrocarbon out of it. You can make soda ash out of it. There are hundreds of products can be produced using this pure form of CO2. That's
Mr. Rao, I think whatever you're saying is very interesting, and that gives us a phenomenal hope for the future. But
Yeah.
can you also tell me, have there been improvements done already, and with what kind of results? Because one is the future. People are also looking for evidence of having some work having happened.
Yeah, currently India is the best performance in terms of carbon emissions in the world. We are the best, and we are India is having a emission levels of 575 kgs of CO2, which is the best in the world, against the global average of going towards 750. So we are the best in the world in terms of energy efficiency, and many low-hanging, because luckily the cement industry in India is almost 97% private sector, and been focusing on the energy efficiency intensively. Currently, we are the best in the country, best in the world in terms of performance. When I come to the use phase, this is the manufacturing phase of the cement. Similarly, story is there for glass, steel, and every other building material. When I come to the use phase, there are lots of improvements happened. I think all of you know that the presentation what he has made, he is talking about prefabricated factory assembled buildings to minimize the wastage, how you can actually get the delivered the better performance. But in the same way that there is one is that the new concretes which have been produced, the concrete which is an insulating concrete which can reduce the building cooling requirement by 70%. Especially this particular product has been introduced in a prefabricated house. Most probably will be able to eliminate, generate much more savings because it is produced in a controlled environment. Another one is, can we avoid plastering for a concrete? The new idea is that can we avoid the usage of materials like concrete and cement, lower quantity, and use high performance product in the process that we will have a lean structures and use less amount of cement and concrete. And at the same time, and the life of the building that you don't need to do the plastering and also painting. Most important aspect, the point which you mentioned about, does the building can become a tree? So the building can actually become a tree because in the manufacturing of cement, when the calcination limestone occurs, we actually decarbonize the limestone. When after the construction, if we are able to keep the construction of the building, and the concrete is going to keep absorbing the CO2 from the atmosphere like a plant. The CO2 is being absorbed with the concrete structure, and in the process that the CO2 in the atmosphere is reduced. Another aspect is the sulfur dioxide, NOx, are being environment pollutants which have been actually released. And by addition of a catalyst in concrete, these actually going to absorb the most of the toxic gases in the city, which are coming from the transport systems. Those SO2, NOx, VOCs, all other materials are going to be absorbed by the concrete structures.
Wait. I'm very excited. I want to ask you this question. So these are innovations that have been already done, or the manufacturers already using this, or is the adoption just about happening?
So this has been already successfully done on the pilots, and been the early use happened in the some European countries, and I'm anticipating that in a year's time in India we will have these products available from the leading companies, where you will be able to have insulating concrete. And insulating concrete is already available from major players. And also we have a permeable concrete, which allows the water to be penetrated through the concrete. And in the process that the entire whatever is fallen on the building is being absorbed with the building structure. And the process of the drains which we create, we can harvest the entire water which has fallen on the building. And so these are the two elements which is required. Another is the construction demolition waste. In any particular area where
so one second, Mr. Rao, you got me very excited. I got to ask this question on behalf of the participants. When you say the material that has been invented and has passed through the pilot phase, when used in the buildings, it will absorb CO2. Let's talk about SO2 later. It will absorb CO2. And it is in that, it is one of the dimensions in which you say that the building can become a tree, right? Now, I am quite curious, when do you think such a commercialization is likely to happen? Can we see those kinds of materials being available and buildings being built with that material?
I think these materials, if there is if this material, if someone is ready to use these materials, the materials are already available for a couple of companies in India, and they can be made available in the 2021 itself. So another product which I'm saying is about a new thing is about water. In a building, when we are constructing, the huge amount of water is consumed. Can we do a waterless curing? Waterless curing is something which is going to save a lot of water. Another one is for a curing of the concrete. Can we use pure CO2 into the concrete? In the process that whatever the CO2 emitted in the manufacturing of cement, can we use this? In a prefabricated structures of petro girders, when we are doing all this, CO2 can be used for a curing material. Gas can be actually pushed into the material. Approximately whatever the CO2 emitted in the cement manufacturing, 10% of the CO2 can be absorbed per year. 10% of the CO2 emitted can be absorbed in the at the manufacturing stage of the concrete.
Mr. Rao, I mean, whatever you said is so intense, so elaborate, so rich. Now, if the BlueCircle members and participants want to hear more about it, are there papers that you have published that you will be kind enough to give access to our members?
No, these ultimately we can organize directly a presentation from the researchers.
Beautiful, beautiful. We'll probably do that.
On the platform, on the BlueCircle platform, we can definitely have especially for the developers and architects who are actually designing the building, how to use this material, how they can actually conceive a net zero building. A building, let it be affordable housing net zero, or a commercial building net zero, a hospital to be a net zero. And these cases that people only look towards the solar energy and other things, by using the innovation in the materials we use in a building, we can actually become a net zero in the entire life cycle phase.
Mr. Rao, thank you so much. I'm going to be taking you up on that offer, really very generous offer. Thank you so much. I'll be coming right back to you. Next few minutes, see, there are lots of questions that have come from our participants, very, very interesting questions, including people who are very serious, sustainability advocates, young sustainability advocates as well. But before we go there, I just want to do a very quick round robin of the three of the panelists for a very short answer to the following question. And that will leave us with a little time so that we can actually take up those questions and do some justice in order to answer those questions. The question that I want to go around the three of you is, whatever you're doing is too good to be true. And why isn't the whole world adopting all the innovations that you talked about and going green day after tomorrow? So what are the drivers that are being caused by the innovations that you're taking up, creating, and what are the challenges in the faster adoption of these innovations, and what are the challenges? So let me move to Sourabh. I would really appreciate if all of you can give very short answers so we can actually go to the questions that the audience raised.
Well, Raghavan, the first most obvious challenge that green technologies or new technologies face is the perceived, not the real, but the perceived incremental cost or the cost of such technologies. But apart from that, we have faced some challenges on the front that there was a need to re-engineer the entire value chain. So that was one of the biggest challenges. So the technologies that we have launched, we are aspiring to bring about a change of an order of magnitude. So such changes do require, mindset changes at the level of designers, at the level of developers and the contractors. So we need to create awareness among the designers that such solutions are available in our country. We need to change the mindset of a developer that the costs need to be considered are the total costs of ownership rather than just the upfront product cost. And for the contractors, we need to equip them or train them or make them aware of the ways to tackle these products. So these have been the major challenges that we have faced. Talking of what government can do or government's role, I think government has been proactive enough in coming up with an ECBC code, the energy conservation code that the government has come up with. Also, I think there are some incentives that the government has offered for developers going green. I think what additionally, or like we have seen what government's intervention can do to industries like solar energy and electric vehicles. So I think a similar impetus from the government can definitely help us achieve what it is intending to achieve, let's say 50% reduction by 2030 in energy consumption. It can really happen if states start adopting the ECBC, start mandating its compliance. So these are some of the things that we believe can bring about the change we are looking for.
There have also been some actions such as making fly ash available free and things like that, right? There have been some amount of positive support to the industry to improve on the energy coefficient. So thank you for sharing that. I would like to move to Gopal. Basically, the need for certification for developers is one driver I can see, but why is it not seen in a much larger scale? I'm sure that you would love to see that as well. So could you tell us what are the drivers first? What really motivates people to go for its certification? And what are the challenges for a larger scale adoption?
Sure. So let's start at a macro level. I think as a country, India, we are a signatory to the Paris Accord. So, the government would love all of us to go green so that we can add to that quotient as well. Now, obviously, many leadership organizations in India, I'm not talking about multinationals here who have a mandate for that. Many Indian leadership organizations in every segment, whether you talk about developers, corporates, IT, manufacturing, warehouse, data centers, PSUs. Today, many of the metro stations are going lead, airports, etc. So the good news is, I think, and what are the drivers here? Lead has become an economic value proposition because the payback periods are there. It impacts my bottom line. The health and well-being of my people go up. All that is very clear to the leadership organizations, both private and public. And government is also doing its bit. I think as Sourabh said, many of the state governments today have green policies where they incentivize people, right? So if you're going to go for a fresh consumption which is green or LEED, you get an extra FAR, you get a lot of other duty, this thing, etc. So those are the drivers. But what are the challenges? I think it's a wonderful question. Why are not everybody going green? And I think Sourabh did refer to that. First of all, there is that lack of awareness. There's a myth that green is costly, right? So it needs to percolate down to everybody, and it's already happening because we do see leadership organizations today talking about it. So it's percolating down. So that's one thing which I think needs to be done I think at an exponential level. It cannot be it cannot be incremental. And the good news is now I'm seeing CXOs of organizations getting into the picture. 5 years back, 10 years back, sustainability used to be only discussed amongst the project heads, architects. But today, sustainability has now become part of the balance scorecard, the KPI of the CXO. Like what happened, I think, 10 years back on the ERP implementations. They took the drive. So that's happening, which I think is going to widen the base. But I think the biggest challenge is the myth that green is costly, which is not. The second important thing is about capacity building. So today, so I'm again talking two things very quickly. One is our students of architecture and engineering at a campus level, when they are in the institutes, should know about this. Second, people who already passed out and are working today, architects, engineers, also need to be educated because many of them are not aware. So I think, so in summary, two things: the myth or the awareness. Second is, to plug that awareness and get into capacity building, we need to have more professionals. Just to give you a data point, in many of our leading countries, we have close to one consultant for every 2 projects. But in India, we have 1 consultant for 10 projects. And the way we're going to grow on green in India, I actually have a fear that we may not have enough capacity on the ground. So the immediate thing is capacity building.
I think if I remember right, you were already addressing the skill requirements, and I believe you have a lot of courses that you made available to public if they want to get themselves skilled. But I don't know whether they are at knowledge level or at skill level, but it's another conversation for us to have. But I do recognize the fact that you are calling out the potential shortage of skilled talent in this space, while we are addressing all the innovations related to what many subcomponents industries should do. But to bring it all together, we need talent that really can take it to the fruition of the innovations. So one question to you, Mr. Rao. The number of innovations that you talked about are just mind-boggling. And the day when all these innovations actually reach the marketplace and people are adopting this, I can visualize a beautiful future. But tell me, what are the challenges that you currently face? For example, you can just take one example and tell me, tell the audience what challenge you are likely to face. You take the example of the carbon absorbing cement, let's say, for example.
So, for example, first of all, I would like to tell you what are the challenges for the acceleration, the penetration of the decarbonization of the sector. First of all, to introduce the carbon labeling. Right now, BAS, Bureau of Indian Standard, has to introduce a carbon labeling, which is not there, where the customer knows exactly to buy the material which is actually low carbon and high carbon. And right now, that awareness is not there. I fully agree with the other speakers also. Awareness is one of the important, and labeling is one important. We need to create a domestic carbon market. I produce a cement of a lower carbon footprint. There is no price benefit for that. The taxation is 28% GST for whether you make a 1 ton CO2 per ton of cement or you make a 0 CO2 per ton of cement, the GST is 20%. There should be differentiated taxation for the green material, which is not there. Labeling is not there. Standards are not there. Next one is the cost of finance. Today, what is happening is the India cost of finance is far higher than the Europe and US and other countries. And we require to see that how for the demonstration projects of technology, we require to have the access to the green finance. And that is something going to help in terms of penetration of these demonstration projects. Because when you talk about carbon capture and use, that project in Norway and Sweden, they're giving a 90% capital subsidy to the company in the process of 1 million tons of CO2 reduction. Cost approximately $1 billion investment. So such type of investment should become a big barrier in terms of the capex. Capex is one of the barrier. And second thing is the making the investment is a voluntary, like whether IGBC or everything is a voluntary initiative. How to make the standards, the green building code of the country more stringent, and in the process that the green becomes for all the buildings. Now today, only 5 to 10% of the buildings of the country is only coming to the green, and we require to take it to the 100%. We require to definitely bring the modification of the code of the National Building Code to make a very stringent in terms of the carbon footprint and labeling of this particular thing. So, and we need to support the innovative path-breaking technology. Like we have a IISc Bangalore, who actually in the month of February has come out with a patent which says that he can produce the cement without the limestone. Now, this particular technology, which requires the type of support. And now we have a IIT Bombay scientist in Germany has produced a recycled, manufactured, aggregate and manufactured sand. And now he's producing in Germany. And now this particular technology can be brought into the country. So what I see that now we have the Indian scientists develop this technology right now, which requires a support. And also if there's a carbon market, the benefit which is coming from the carbon certificates, which actually fund the project. Now today, if I do some project like a building which is constructed in a commercial building in a business as usual is going to be 10,000 tons of CO2, he comes the innovation and produces the building with 1,000 tons. The delta of the CO2 you should be able to sell. Currently, the labeling is not there, carbon market is not there. In such case that the ecosystem is not developed, which requires definitely a large amount of interventions, which ultimately accelerate the entire innovators to do the job.
So what you're saying is, government intervention to enable faster adoption is something that you would give as a priority as to what is required to be done. So I understand. Of course, we can go into a lot of depth about what is the role of the consumer and the industry as a whole in order to adopt this is another question. But for paucity of time, I will just leave this point here. I would like to go on to take up some of the questions. We've got another 10 minutes. With everybody's permission, I would request to exceed it by 5 minutes. And I would like to see how we can take up some questions and answer them. So some questions I'll answer myself, and then I'm going to pick up some questions that have come on the Q&A on the panel. So one of the questions that has come about is, this is from Sandeep Goswami, CEO of Sandeep Goswami Associates. Thank you for asking the question, sir. Does real estate investors have a plan to use BRSR or TCFD tools, basically reporting statements? Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures is TCFD, and BRSR is Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting, to de-risk investment which are bound to be unsettled due to climate change, extreme weather events. I think the only answer I would like to say is that the Government of India and the BSC together, they are all insisting on greater transparency, greater detailing of the whole set of actions taken by corporates on ESG. So it's a large umbrella of ESG reporting that is going to cover, including the real estate sector. Right now, the BRSR regulations are a part of the requirement for the top 100 companies. And I think they're also collecting information that are contributing to the report of the TCFD. But when do they become statutes is something to be seen. At this moment, there are certain requirements to report on the ESG as a whole. There's another question from Mr. Raghuvan V, Specialist EWA. We are on a mission to make small societies sustainable in their energy and water requirements. How can GBCI assist in realizing our dream? I think Gopal didn't have enough time to say that today, they are not only doing LEED certification for buildings, they're also doing for cities. So if you are someone who is very interested in ensuring that your city is rated so that you can have a dashboard for improvements, please feel free to get in touch with Gopal. There are some questions which have come. I know that my answers are not full and comprehensive, but I think with the availability of time, this is what we can do. There are more interesting angles that you all want to explore. Please feel free to write to us, and we will certainly make sure some answers are given. Now I'm going to some questions which have come on the Q&A section here. There's a question from Mr. Abir Bhalla. Abir Bhalla is a young environment activist, sustainability spokesperson. He has been speaking in several forums and he is very, very active in this. He's got a couple of questions, 3 questions actually. The first question I'm going to move to Sourabh. What is the scope of Eco Bricks, a plastic bottle packed tight with used plastic to make a reusable building block to be used for construction in India? It is being used to construct sheds and playgrounds in the UK. Do we have the technology to adopt the use of such Eco Bricks in India? I really want very, very short answers. We won't be able to give comprehensive answers because of lack of time, but Sourabh, please go for it.
Raghavan, I've heard about such bricks. I think some prototypes have been carried out in our country, but I believe that plastic waste can be put to use to more value-added to make more value-added products compared to bricks. Bricks being very cheap product, let's say at 3 rupees a kg or 4 rupees a kg kind of product, whereas this plastic waste can be selling. So I think that is one of the reasons that these haven't been used in India for large-scale commercialization.
Thank you, Sourabh. There's another question from Abir again. This question is a long one, but I'm going to summarize the question for us. Basically, economic growth on one side, development and sustainability on the other. In conversations, people generally treat it as trade-offs. Abir believes that fundamentally both can go hand in hand. I think we alluded to this concept is that as we move towards individual incentives, synchronizing with the global commons objectives, there will be more adoption. But it's curious to know whether this is true even for the construction industry. If there is a shift to capital-intensive, environmentally friendly building materials, as opposed to conventional bricks or PVC pipes, etc., will that mean a loss of jobs? Is there scope for job creation replacement in sustainable building projects? So I'm going to quickly ask this question to Mr. Rao. If you can give a very brief answer for this, please.
I think the sustainable products actually deliver more jobs, and it is profitable. Sustainable products are sustainable and profitable. Every business is on the top on the DGSA ranking. Currently, they are giving more employment and they're producing more profit to the organization. Sustainability is profitable, and you are using more and more recycled materials. Your raw material cost will come down over a period of time. And in the process that if you have a technology over a period of time, it is going to deliver value.
There is one other question from Abir, which talks about how can more people be made aware of such technological advancements? I think there's a wealth of knowledge right among the panelists today. As Mr. Rao has kindly offered, we will do another session with a lot more focus and details of whatever he is privy to and he's been working on. And we will try and make more and more awareness sessions on this one. You can also write to us with any specific ideas which you would like us to use as a platform for giving more awareness. Awareness, as the panelists themselves are alluded, is the first and the foremost blocking point in more and more people adopting it, because not only are they less aware of what is being done, but they're also aware in a wrong position. They expect this to be more expensive. For example, your question itself says that there is probably fear that such materials adoption will lead to loss of jobs. So lack of awareness is one thing, but taking a position which is actually quite the other side of the truth are two different things which we need to manage. But thank you for raising the question. It's an important point. There is a question from Mr. Shreyas Sheth. Elaborate on insulating concrete, its properties and manufacturers in India. Would Sourabh want to take a shot at this? There is a short answer. Otherwise, we'll have to write later.
Sorry, can you please come back with the question?
Elaborate on insulating concrete, its properties and manufacturers in India. This is from Mr. Shreyas Sheth.
Well, insulating concrete is what we make. That's lightweight concrete, aerated concrete. And we are one of the manufacturers. We'll be happy to share with you a list of more manufacturers in your area.
All right.
I can add a point on that. I can add a point
please.
on that.
Please do. Please do.
We can produce any product today is available. Even in a My1 construction, we can produce a concrete which will reduce the footprint of the energy footprint of the building by 50%. The air conditioning will come down by 50%. Even in a My1 construction of a thin wall, concrete walls also can be made the insulating concrete.
There are two questions from Mr. Rajagopal and TS. One question is like electrical appliances are being star marked based upon their energy efficiency. Can all the building materials be also marked? I think this is the question which Mr. Rao in his own conversation alluded to, saying about carbon rating is one such thing that needs to be done. It's not yet done. I think the industry is evolving in that respect. The other question from Mr. Rajagopalan is, from a developer into leasing of commercial spaces, this is a question for Gopal. Building residential buildings point of view. One second, the thing is jumping. Hold on. Basically, he's saying that lead GBCI, IGBC, Griha certification doesn't fetch any extra revenues from their customers. We're all only talking about incentives, but governments haven't been proactive yet. If there are any of such incentives in Karnataka, Bangalore, please share the same. Gopal, would you like to take that question?
Yeah. So before that quick question, I think let me answer the last two questions as well. Now, we talked about the loss of jobs. It's to the contrary. Today, India is becoming the sustainability capital for the world, whether it is in terms of provision of green materials to the rest of the world, or even in terms of consulting. We see a lot of people actually supporting a lot of projects even outside India. So what IT and technology did to India a decade back, sustainability is going to do that. So that's a very quick add on to whatever we have discussed. Now, to your question, Karnataka unfortunately does not have a green policy in place. I think we are talking to them. What I understand is going to be in place very quickly, where incentives are going to be provided as well. The third point is about does it fetch extra rentals? I think it's a question of how are you communicating back to your tenants, right? So tenants need to understand what is the value in me, what is the value for me to come into, let's say, a LEED certified building, which will make me pay a higher rental. A lot of developers in India have done it, and I'm happy to take this offline so that how the communication and pitching can be done, we can add value.
Thank you, Gopal. I'm going to be able to take only one last question. That question I'm going to focus on you again, Gopal. The question is how real estate is focusing on incorporating the reuse of the consumed resources like water, steam for heating, cooling, water bodies, and green cover. So you may want to just throw light on it.
I think it's a wonderful question. So let me just talk about
this is from Mr. Ajay Mann, who's a consultant with Engineers India Limited.
Sure. Okay. A good question. And again, I'm just talking on behalf of LEED or any other ratings in India. So today, whenever a building is certified as green, for example, open spaces do fetch you points. I think I alluded to that last time as well. And even the reuse of everything, whether it is going to be water which has been used for heating or cooling or whatever it is, that definitely adds to the scores of LEED at a building level. Let me tell you something very interesting about LEED for cities. I think you talked about green cover. Today, for any city, when I'm saying city, it's just not about a public city, even a private city. It can be a small campus. If that has to get LEED certified at a campus or a city level, there is a mandate that approximately 131 square feet per person should be the green cover. So that's a type of mandate we are pushing into system. So today, if you walk into, let's say, any of these certified buildings in India, whether it's a building level or let's say at a city level, you will actually see whatever questions you've asked, all are getting actually ticked.
Thank you, Gopal. I'm afraid that we have come to a point where I need to round up the discussions. I think we have basically done very, very small justice to this enormous topic of sustainability, that too from the sector which is the biggest contributor to the issues. We've also done very less justice to the intellectual capacity and the experience of the panelists that we have here, as well as the curiosity of the participants who raised many questions. Some of them we have not been able to answer them at this point of time. This only proves one thing. This only proves that the enormity of the task is huge. This also proves that apart from individual actions and industry level actions, community level actions, and the government actions, it requires all of these to come together to start moving the needle farther and farther. We did hear some interesting things. Sourabh talked about how we aren't that bad in terms of energy consumption from the cement industry standpoint on the global scale. We heard Gopal talk about how India's adoption of LEED certification is one of the leading countries in the world. And we have seen in real life example of Sourabh actually having created a solution and is currently being used. So we have lots of positive things that have come about, and add on top of it the fountainhead of research and the innovations that are coming from various research organizations, various industries that Mr. Raghavan talked about. This is a whole optimistic future that we're looking at. But I'm sure that we will have many more opportunities to go into different layers of this important topic. So stay tuned, stay with BlueCircle, and await further conversations. I thank the panelists for taking the time. I thank the participants who have joined us this evening on a working day. Really appreciate it. Over to you, Siddharth.
Thank you very much, sirs, for such an insightful and engaging conversation, and a privilege to hear you all, and very well moderated, Mr. Raghavan. Our leaders and I have taken home several nuggets from today's conversation. I'm also receiving messages on my WhatsApp, and they thank you all for the session today. I really wish we had more time. And thank you to the leaders in the audience for joining in and for always staying till the end, for sharing excellent questions. But for the questions that have not been addressed due to paucity of time, I will share the relevant ones with the leaders on the panel and request some of their time for it. We will also try to post the data, the answers in the community app as well. Also, Mr. Sheth is looking to also understand more deeply in detail, and we'll facilitate connects wherever required. And along with our weekly webinars and our publication, we're taking these discussions and conversations on an exclusive curated app, which is specifically for senior leaders across our 6 sectors, which are real estate, logistics, healthcare, energy, e-mobility, and aerospace and defense. So whether you would like to engage with us on our platform, leaders are invited to join the real estate circle and also get access to the many other allied circles we're building. I've also shared the app link and also will be emailing the audience selectively. So thank you very much, sirs. We look forward to having more such discussions in the future, and please stay safe.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.